This week we are thinking about the second Sunday in Advent, which is the second Sunday of preparation for the season of Christmas. On this time we think about one of the great themes of the pre-Christmas season, and that's hope, and that we begin to realise that there are all sorts of things that we hope for. I think in actual fact we confuse wishing and hoping, and perhaps the Advent season helps us to see this, is that we wish for all sorts of things, and usually most of what we wish for is fairly insignificant, but our hopes are deep and deep-seated. That while we might wish we had a new car, and that might even seem fairly important at the time, that our hopes are usually about things to do with our human relationships and about the deepest desires that we have. Advent season helps us to think about what hope is about. So when we are trying to think about hope, what we realise is that the Christmas revelation reveals to us something about hope, and that is that hope is about the person of Jesus. Is that if we are to focus on what it means to hope, then we are to look at Jesus. So let me just help you with three things that you might do during this week and perhaps during the rest of the season of Advent to help us be people who are more filled with hope. The first is give time to Jesus. Like any relationship that we have, we need to be prepared to give time. Our time with Jesus will be spent with prayer, with reading the Bible, with worship, just trying to pay attention to the way God might be speaking to us. I often say to people, if God was speaking to you, what might God be saying? Because perhaps that's a way we have of understanding what God is actually saying to us. Try to take some time to be with Jesus during this very busy season of Advent. The second thing that we might think about is how do we get in touch with Jesus? Only a couple of weeks ago we were thinking about how Jesus says to us that if you are to be in touch with me, then you actually need to be in touch with the weakest and the poorest and the humblest of society. So we are to take care of those who are poor, to be responsive to those who are sick, to care for the homeless, the naked, the hungry. Is there space in our Advent time? And traditionally we have seen this as a time of service. We're often so busy just chasing the party that we forget that we will find Jesus not at the parties by and large. We will find Jesus where the broken are. Are you paying attention to Jesus in the life of the broken, homeless, humble, poor? And finally, we're reminded that Christmas Advent is a season of giving. We can hardly forget that. We're completely bombarded about that. Again, we might make the mistake of thinking it's about trying to achieve the biggest pile of goodies that we possibly can. But in the trite little sayings that we have about giving, it's better to give than to receive, we all know the truth of that. We need to also remember that the reason we give at Advent, Christmas time, is because we're celebrating the fact not that it's Jesus' birthday and therefore we should give Jesus a present which we'll happily receive on his behalf, but rather that we're celebrating the fact that our God is a giving God, and that the opportunity is here for us to do something about our innate human selfishness, and that is to combat it by the best way that we can possibly combat our selfishness, and that is by giving, is that we combat our selfishness by being people who give. So three things you can do to be in touch with the spirit of hope, the spirit of Jesus himself at this Advent time. Three things which we all know will pay dividends when it comes to opening us up to being people who are hopeful rather than people who are despairing. One is that we need to pay attention to Jesus. Prayer, Bible reading, worship, just listening to what Jesus might be saying to us. That we need to be people who are looking at the needs of those who are most in need, the poor, the sick, the hungry, the thirsty, and that we need to be filled with a spirit of generosity to combat the natural tendency we have towards selfishness. Advent season is a great season. It's a season filled with hope, but we need to play our part and be open to the spirit which God gives us. See you in a week's time.